Ever wonder how a solar panel just makes electricity from sunlight with no moving parts? Or how the billions, and I mean billions of transistors in your phone can flip on and off in the blink of an eye? Well, a huge part of the answer is this invisible force called diffusion current. It is, without a doubt, the unsung hero of all modern electronics. And in this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain and see exactly how it works.
And look, if you're feeling anything like this poor soul on Reddit, I totally get it. I gotta be honest, when I was first learning this stuff, this was the one concept that just about broke my brain. It felt wrong. But stick with me here, I promise, because by the end of this, we are going to have that aha moment together. So why is this so tough to wrap your head around? Well, the thing is, we're all taught that electricity works kind of like water in a pipe, right? You need a pump, like a battery, to get it moving. But diffusion current? That's more like the way the smell of fresh popcorn fills a movie theater. There's no giant fan pushing it around, it just spreads. And that's where our everyday intuition just completely falls apart. Okay, so to really crack this thing open, we're going to do something that might feel a little weird. We are going to completely forget about electronics. No circuits, no wires, none of it, for just a minute. Instead, we're going to look at something much, much simpler.
Picture this with me. You've got a glass of water, and it is perfectly still. Now let's take one tiny, super concentrated drop of blue dye and put it right in the center. We're not going to stir it, we're not going to shake it, we're just going to watch. What happens next, completely on its own, is the whole secret to understanding diffusion.
So what's really happening on a microscopic level? Well, every single one of those little dye molecules is just bouncing around randomly, totally chaotic. But here's the statistical magic. When they're all crammed together in the middle, it's just way more likely that a molecule will randomly bounce out of the crowded area than bounce back in. It's not a force, it's just a game of odds. And that right there, that's the absolute key. The dye spreads out not because something is pushing it, but just because of pure, simple probability.
Now, there's a name for this, of course. Scientists call it moving down a concentration gradient. It's just a fancy way of saying that things in the universe tend to spread out, moving from where there's a lot of them to where there's not so many, until it's all balanced. And believe it or not, that simple fundamental idea is the engine behind some of the most advanced tech on the planet. All right, you with me? We've got the dye and water thing down. Now, let's grab that exact same idea and bring it back into the world of electronics. Because it turns out, inside a semiconductor, there are really two main ways for current to flow. First up, you guessed it, diffusion current. This is literally our dye and water effect. But instead of dye molecules, we've got charge carriers, like electrons. So if you bunch up a whole lot of electrons in one spot, they will naturally, randomly, spread out to where there are fewer electrons. And that movement of charge, that, my friends, is a current. And then there's the other guy, drift current. Now this is the one we're all familiar with. This is your classic electricity 101. You apply a voltage that creates an electric field, and that field physically pushes or pulls the electrons in a certain direction. It's the simple, intuitive, water in a pipe current we all know and love.
So let's put them side by side here. You can see the big difference. For diffusion current, the cause is just a difference in concentration, that gradient we talked about. But for drift current, it's all about an electric field giving things a push. Two totally different causes, but they both result in a flow of charge.
Okay, but here's where it gets really cool. Because in any real device, these two currents aren't just doing their own thing. Oh no. They are locked in a constant microscopic tug of war, a push and pull that is happening billions of times every single second inside every chip you own. And the absolute best place to watch this incredible dance unfold is at something called a p-n junction. It's the basic building block of almost everything, like diodes and transistors. All you really need to know is that the N side is packed to the gills with electrons, and the P side is basically empty. Seriously, just picture a wild, crowded party right next door to a totally empty room. So what do you think happens? Well, step one is obvious, right? Diffusion kicks in. The electrons from the crowded N side start spilling over into the empty P side. But, and this is the genius part, as those negative electrons move, they leave behind positive charges. This separation of charge creates its own electric field. And what does an electric field do? It creates a drift current that starts pushing electrons back the other way. It's this amazing feedback loop. The diffusion literally creates its own enemy. So what's the end result of all this? The system finds a perfect balance, a perfect standoff. The diffusion current pushing electrons one way is now perfectly canceled out by the drift current pushing them back. The net result? Zero current. It's a state of dynamic equilibrium, a constant, invisible, and perfectly balanced war.
Okay, so I know what you might be thinking. A perfect balance, zero current, who cares, right? Well, here's why you should care. That delicate, perfect stalemate is the secret weapon we use to control electricity in just about everything.
You see, diffusion isn't some weird side effect. It's a fundamental engine. And that stalemate, that perfect balance, is a tipping point that we can control. With just a tiny little external voltage, we can give a nudge. We can either help the diffusion current and open the floodgates, creating a massive flow, or we can help the drift current and slam the door shut. That ability to tip the scales, that's the foundation of all digital computers.
And I'm not talking about some obscure little piece of physics here. This balancing act is the very heart of modern technology. It's how a diode works as a one-way street for electricity. It's the core principle of the transistors in your laptop's processor. It's even how a solar cell uses nothing but light to create a current. This tiny, invisible dance is, quite literally, what powers our world. So, the next time you pick up your phone or flip on your computer, just take a second to remember what's really going on deep inside those chips. It's this constant, beautiful, and chaotic dance between the randomness of statistics and the order of a directed push. It's just a perfect example of how we can harness the most basic laws of nature to build incredible things.
Honestly, finally wrapping my head around this concept was a huge moment for me. It makes you realize that even the most ridiculously complex technology is built on these stunningly simple and elegant principles. It kind of changes how you see the world, doesn't it? It just makes you wonder, what other amazing forces are out there, hiding in plain sight, just waiting for us to notice?